Good evening, Professor. Today, I would like to share our progress on our cybersecurity project titled Scanning for Website Vulnerability using Nikto. This project focuses on using a well-known open source security tool called Nikto to identify potential vulnerability in any websites. And our goal is to show how vulnerability scanning tool can make website more secure and to understand how this tool work in real cybersecurity scenario. For this program report, we'll explain our project objective, the tool we are using, our workflow or pipeline, and what we have accomplished so far, the challenges we face, and our next step, what we're trying to do in the future. So let's start with our main objective. The goal of our project is to automatically detect and analyze website vulnerability using Nikto. In simple terms, we want to build a system that can check a website for weaknesses, things like outdated server software with configuration or file that shouldn't be publicly accessible. By doing this, we aim to show how cybersecurity professionals use vulnerability scanning tools to improve web security. And our objective isn't about hacking or breaking into any system. It's about learning ethical cybersecurity practices, understanding how scanning works, and interpreting the result in a meaningful way. From that goal, we came up with a few research and project questions to guide our work. First, we want to know what type of vulnerability can Nikto detect effectively. Second, how can we automate the scanning process? Because scanning one website is easy, but doing it for multiple sites efficiently requires scripting or automation. Third, how do we interpret the scan result properly? Sometimes Nikto finds things that might not be real risks, so we need to understand which findings are important. And finally, what are Nikto limitations? No tool is perfect, so we also want to understand what Nikto cannot detect or when it might be used for results. So this question will help us evaluate how useful and reliable Nikto really is for web vulnerability assessment. Next, let's talk about the tool and technologies we're using for this project. We're working mainly in Kali Linux, which is a Linux distribution that's commonly used for cybersecurity tasks. It already comes with many tools, including Nikto. Nikto itself is our main scanning tool. It's open source and runs through the terminal. With just a simple command, it can test a website for thousands of known security issues. For automation, we plan to use Bash scripting and possibly Python to make process faster and easier, especially if we want to scan multiple targets. For reporting, Nikto can generate results in different formats like HTML, CSV, or plain text. We can then open in Excel or process with Python for visualization. So overall, our toolchain is lightweight but effective, mainly Linux, Nikto, and scripting.
Here is a quick overview of our project pipeline, in which we begin by selecting a target website that we have permission to scan, or of course, we can just choose the intentionally vulnerable websites for learning purposes, just like the one in the example here. After that, we run the Nikto scan command in the terminal. Of course, Nikto will then perform a scan, checking the web server for outdated components, missing headers, and insecure files. And after the scan is completed, it generates a report, which of course gives us in detail about the findings from what it has scanned. Right after the report, we of course need to analyze the result, identifying the important findings, and of course try to identify which might be false positive. And after that, we need to summarize our finding and propose recommendations like suggesting updates, removing exposed files, or changing server configurations. This helps us stay organized and systematic throughout the project. Okay, moving on to the step-by-step process, we decided to divide it into 5 steps, in which the first step involves setting up and install the tool on our Linux by running the command. After that, we need to prepare a list of websites that we are allowed to scan, and then of course we run Nikto manually on a single target to make sure that it works correctly. But once the scan starts, Nikto automatically checks for vulnerabilities and configuration problems. After the scan finishes, similar to what we talked about earlier, it generates a report, and then what we need to do is to analyze the finding. Like it might warn us about outdated Apache versions or missing security headers. And then, of course, we summarize everything in a clear report that includes what we found and our recommended actions. Well, so far we have tested this pipeline successfully on demo websites, and the results show that Nikto can detect a wide range of issues very quickly. Of course, just like any other projects, we ran into a few problems along the way. But the first issue is that some websites block scans, especially if they detect too many requests coming from one IP address. So we have to be careful with timing and permissions. Another challenge is false positive. Sometimes Nikto reports vulnerabilities that aren't actually exploitable, so we have to double check those in the summarized and analyzed section. And another challenge, of course, is it contains very technical terms or vulnerability IDs in which we have to research manually to fully understand what it means. And last but not least, since we are dealing with security testing, ethical considerations are very important. We must ensure that we only scan websites we have permission to test and follow responsible disclosure practice. Well, moving forward, we have a few plans to improve our project. The first is to automate the scanning processes completely. So instead of typing one command at a time, we can feed a list of websites into a script, and Nikto will scan them one by one and save all of the reports. The second step is to create a small visualization. For example, using Python or even Excel that summarize how many vulnerabilities were found and their severity levels. And we also plan to compare Nikto with other tools listed here. And last but not least, we'll complete our final documentation and demo presentation to show our full progress at the end of the semester. That is all from my part. I would like to give this opportunity to Sok-Ain to present next.
Like respected output. By the end of this project, we expect to have a working system that can scan websites automatically using Nikto. We will have multiple HTML or text reports that show details vulnerability for each site we tested. We will also gain deeper hands-on experience with cybersecurity tool learning not just how to use them, but how to interpret their result responsibly. In the end, this project should help us better understand how real-world vulnerability assessments work and how important article testing is for protecting web applications. So moving on to demonstrations. Now let's take a look at short videos demos of our project. In this YouTube clip, you will see Nikto running on Linux terminal. They enter the target websites and Nikto immediately starts scanning for potential issues. After a few seconds, it lists the vulnerabilities it found, such as outdated server versions and accessible backup files. Finally, it saves everything into a details report file, which we can review and analyze it. So now let's take a look with a video.
In this video, we're going to be learning how to scan websites for vulnerabilities. We're going to be using a tool called Nikto. Nikto is an open source web server scanner that is used to identify vulnerabilities like outdated software, dangerous files, and potential misconfigurations. So let's learn how to use Nikto on our Kali Linux. Before we get started, this video is purely for educational purpose. Never scan any website that you do not have the permission to scan. So I'm in my Kali Linux right now. I have a website running on my local host. This is the DVWA vulnerable web application. I'm going to try to find vulnerabilities of this website. So I'll copy the link of this website, go to my terminal, and we'll use the tool Nikto to scan for vulnerabilities. Nikto is already pre-installed in your system. So to use Nikto, type the command nikto space -h for host and paste the URL of the website that you want to scan and press enter. And I can see the scanning has started. This is the target IP. This is the host name. Since this is my localhost website, I do not have a domain name. I can also confirm the port number. The port number was specified in the URL, but you can specify the port number separately. After the scanning has been completed, I can see it was able to identify the server, which is Nginx, and the version number. I can also confirm the vulnerabilities which has been identified. Extreme options header and X content type options header is missing, which will lead to attacks like click checking attacks. I can also confirm phpinfo.php file has been exposed. This file contains sensitive information, so if I copy the path of the file and add it to my URL, I get to see the PHP information with the system details. Now I can find specific vulnerabilities for this version of PHP. I can also confirm admin login page has been exposed, and this is the path. So I'll copy this and add it to my URL, and I get to see the login fields. An attacker can log in as the admin by guessing the correct username and the password, and they can do it with an attack like the brute force attack. For a secured website, an admin login page should never be exposed. So these are the type of scan results you can expect with Nikto. Now let's see some more options of Nikto. But before we do that, if you want to get comfortable with the Kali Linux terminal commands, then click the first link in the description box and you will get the full Kali Linux cheat sheet for completely free. This cheat sheet includes all the essential commands for your day-to-day task, so if you get stuck, you do not have to Google every time. So click on the first link in the description box to get this cheat sheet. You can also scan SSL enabled website. I'm scanning my own website, which has HTTPS. Nikto will handle it automatically. You can also scan specific port by typing -p and the port number that you want to scan. If you want to save the result of the output, then type -o and the name of the file that you want to save the result in. I will type output.txt. Now if I give ls, I can see the scan result has been saved. You can also know how the tool works by checking the manual page by typing man nikto, and you will get the manual page with which you can know in details how the tool works. So that is for the end of the video. If you like this video and want to watch more content related to Kali Linux or
So to conclude, this project show how we can use tool like Nikto to automatically finds vulnerabilities in websites and articles and educational way. It is simple but powerful demonstrations of how cybersecurity professional approach vulnerability scanning, focusing on prevention rather than exploitations. We learned a lot how scanner work, how to interpret their report, and how to handle ethical considerations when testing web system. And these projects also give us a good foundation for more advanced cybersecurity topic in the futures. And that's the end of our progress report presentations. Thank you so much for your listening.